last time when we left off, we had just completed our questioning text and had done the gist read, and then we stopped with us coming up with a text specific question on our own. Is that what you guys remember doing last?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. Teacher.
Yes, teacher. And so then how long has the war been going on when this letter was written was my question. So what were some of the questions that you guys came up with? Carol.
How did the American public respond to this?
To the letter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And yes?
Why should the U.S. join the war, and how does the author state this?
Okay, that's a really good one. So can you guys tell me why the text-specific question that I've come up with is different than the one that James has come up with? Yes.
I don't know if I can answer your question based on the text, but I know that I can answer James's based on the text.
Yes, that's right. So my question is a good question, but it's going to require outside research. So I cannot move forward with my question because I am only going to be analyzing the details of this text that I'm working in. So could we move forward with James's question? Mm-hmm. And his was,
why should the U.S. join the war, mm-hmm. and how does the author state this?
Okay, so why should they join the war, and then how does the author state it? So that is actually, if I had a student who proposed that question, I would say, go for it. That's a great text-specific question that you came up with on your own, and you can move forward. Otherwise, if this were the student, I would say that's a nice question. However, you're going to need to go pick one from the directions. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do now. So these are my directions, and I have these were my guiding questions, and then I have my text-specific questions down here. And so last time we had talked more about what details are used to describe the battlefield and what tone does this establish. So how do you guys feel about using that question for our text-specific question to do the analyzing details graphic order?
That's a great idea.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to take that question, and you guys go ahead and do the same. And I'm going to just paste that into my analyzing the details.
Where do I write this?
I'm going to write this in where it says a question I have about the text in the top box above where the details go and the analysis goes. At this point, usually we revisit our reading purpose. So did you find that your reading purpose was going to be the same the second time you went into the text, or was it slightly different? Why am I reading this text? The same? I'm reading this text. And then what are we understanding his view about?
Battlefield.
The battlefield or World War I is what I had last time. Alright, so now we're ready to go. So now we need to go back and reread the text, but we're not rereading the entire text because now we have already gone in. Now we've already gone through the text, and we know we've annotated the text, and so now we're just looking back in the text to find details that help us to answer our text-specific question. So our text-specific question is, what details are used to describe the battlefield, and what tone does this establish? So we know we're going to need some details about the describing the battlefield. So can anybody look through the text and find some details that help to describe the battlefield?
Carcass-strewn fields.
Okay. I'm going to go back to my text. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the carcass-strewn fields of khaki.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a detail. That's also a really good detail. So I'm just going to put my ellipses. So I'm going to start in the middle of the sentence. So I'm just going to put my ellipses to show that I'm taking this out of context.
Do I have to write all that?
Do you have to write all of it?
The quotes?
I need to write the quotation mark and the ellipses because I'm taking evidence from the text, and I cannot be plagiarizing that evidence. So this is how we take text from someone else without plagiarizing. So this is my quotation mark and my ellipses, and then, okay, and then I'm not going to keep going. So I just only wanted that piece of evidence. So I'm going to stop with my three dots are my ellipses and my quotation mark. But how do I now make sure that I'm not plagiarizing?
You need to cite the author.
Okay, so I'm going to use my parenthetical citation, and so it looks like this. And who's the author?
Dawson.
Colin.
And then what page number did I just take that evidence from?
27.
27. And then I'm going to end with my parenthetical citation, but is my sentence done?
Period.
I need a period. And so the period goes here rather than here, although those were my ellipses, but that's not the same as a period. Okay, so now I have my carcass-strewn fields of khaki. And so now I need to do my analysis. So this is the part where we have to actually say why we're using that evidence to answer our question. So for you guys, what would you say your analysis of that evidence would be?
There's a lot of dead people around.
Okay, there are a lot of dead people, so yes. Okay, and then we also have to talk about the tone. So we can describe it. We can say he's showing us an image of the dead bodies.
In fields infers there's many
Okay.
masses.
In the field. And that infers that there's many.
Or that there is a mass.
Okay.
Okay.
So he's showing us an image of the dead bodies in the field, and there's. Say that again.
The word fields to me infers that there are masses or multiple bodies, many bodies.
Okay. And then what tone? So we still have to answer the tone. So what was the tone that he? And what is tone actually, you guys? What is tone? Do you know?
What's your attitude?
Whose attitude? The author. So kids get that confused a lot. It's not the way they feel. That's the mood. The mood is how the reader feels. The tone is how the author felt. And the only way to know how the author feels, because you can't hear their voice, is to analyze the words they use, the word choices. So what would you say the tone of those words would be? Is he angry? Is he upset? Is he overwhelmed? Disgusted? Okay.
Disillusioned.
Okay, the tone that I get from these words would be that he's disgusted.
So they're like,
The bell. So this point, I've got the analysis of that evidence. So I have my evidence because I need that to prove what I'm saying is true. I can't just make claims without having something to back up what I've said. So now, and I did it right because now I have my parenthetical citation and I haven't plagiarized the author. And then down here, I have my analysis of the evidence. Yes?
I disagree with the tone.
Okay.
I don't see how you got that tone from that sentence. Maybe
Okay.
from the entire document, yes, because I heard words pulled out of the entire document, actually from a different letter when you're talking about the disillusioned war. That was that's later on.
Mm-hmm.
From that sentence, I don't see how we get any of that tone,
Okay.
except for maybe strewn, what Carol brought up.
Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and revise. So the tone that I get from these words would be that he is disconnected from what? What is he disconnected from? The realities of what he's experienced?
maybe the pain of
Okay,
seeing.
from the pain of war. Those were his friends, right? Those were people he knew, and they were just bodies strewn all over the field. People that he knew and worked with, right? Okay, so this right here is something that I often see come back to me as a summary. But do you see the difference between a summary would have been, I see bodies in the field and they are brown. Now we're going to go back into the text looking for our second detail.
Page 28, line 28.
Okay.
Where it says men die, scorched like moths in a furnace, blown to atoms, gassed, tortured.
Okay, so I agree. I think that's a really good piece of evidence to show how he's described the battlefield, and then also we could use that to show his tone. So we'll go back to our analyzing details graphic organizer, and then I'm just going to copy down those lines. Am I done? Am I done citing?
Yeah, put the author.
Okay, so I need my parenthetical citation. His last name is Dawson, and that came from page 28. And then where does the period go? Outside of the parenthetical citation. Okay, so now we get to analyze the details. So men die scorched like moths in a furnace, blown to atoms, gassed and tortured. So how does that describe the battlefield?
They're not seeing dead bodies, they're blown to pieces, they're burned, they're dismembered, they're disfigured from bombs and gases.
Okay, so the image he gives me is what again?
That the bodies are dismembered, disfigured, burnt, and usually not in one piece. I guess
They're dismembered, they're
disfigured, burnt
disfigured and burned
from bombs and poison gas.
from bombs
Artillery.
and gas. Gas, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. And then now we need to tie that back into our question. So what is the tone?
Mrs. Rodriguez.
Yes.
I would say grisly, ghastly images.
Grisly, ghastly images.
I always want to go to the sentences before and after, a group. 'Cause I think it's really hard to pull it out of one sentence, right? If you go before this, he talks about the noble indignation of a great ideal. Alright, so he has that detail, and then he gives this really ghastly, gruesome vision of the battlefield, and then he follows it up with that next one about men marching. So it's I think there's a real opposition at play here.
So can we add more to our detail at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys want to add more?
One before.
Okay, so I'm going to continue. I'm going to put my ellipses because I'm cutting out a line in between, and I'm going to bodies may die. Is it okay? So this part is where you need to go back again to your question. What details are used to describe the battlefield? What tone does this establish? You're answering that question down here. And that's what you're answering. So that's where a lot of kids go, what am I answering down here? And then they just give me a little summary of what they think they think they read or they think they understood. So what would you say would be the difference? What are they actually doing when it says, I compare the details and explain the connections I see among them? So what are the connections that you see among the details that we picked? Yeah.
How about, but you're taking it back to his tone of the battlefield.
Right.
The tone established is one of somber rendition of the hell of the battlefield environment. It's a torturous, hot, blazing, painful death trap.
Okay, so he's used, and I heard you say something about the images that he's used are vivid, and so I would want to say that because they are, and we've pulled out two pretty vivid images, and then we want to tie it back to what's the tone, right? We're talking about Dawson gives us vivid images of, and then you were saying
for this, taking these details was the details of war pull out the gruesomeness, but ties together his conflicting emotion of gallantry and nobleness versus horror and